Three, I'm going slowly because I'm hitting the record button. Two and one.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the third episode of the LFC Boston Speaker Series. I am Garrett Labonte, chairperson of LFC Boston. Today, Patrick Delaney, our treasurer, will be hosting the Anfield Raps content creator, John Gibbons. As part of this series, we've been making charitable contributions to our guests and LFC Boston charities. Today, by request of John, we will be donating to Micah Liverpool. We will be sharing the link in chat if you'd like to make a contribution to Micah Liverpool. We would also like if you could also help continue to support the Greater Boston Food Bank. With that, I am pleased to introduce Patrick Delaney, who will introduce John Gibbons.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our third episode of the LFC Boston Speaker Series. Patrick Delaney, Secretary for LFC Boston, joined by our committee as the panelists who will be dealing with the chat and helping us out today. Very excited today to introduce John Gibbons, head of audio content and many other titles throughout the years at the Anfield Rap, having worked the Rap since your founding, 5 years now. Worked on, you've heard him on many shows, The Gunner, Post-Match Show, The Weekender, many others. For today's event, we'll learn about John's affiliation with the Anfield Rap, how it started, the mood around Liverpool, both now after its rough run of results, the nice pickup win after Spurs, the connection between Liverpool and Boston, and then kind of take a look back when we were crowned champions, first time in 30 years, and what everyone was feeling back then. We'll feature some questions from committee members and from you. So if you have any questions you want to ask, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll be sure to answer them. So we have about 45 minutes to an hour, and we'll include some Q&A at the end. All right. So we'll start off, John. What's your earliest memory of football? Like, how did you become a supporter, and how did you become the man, the myth, the legend that we know today?
Yeah, good question. I don't really remember having much choice, to be honest with you. Like lots of people in this city, my dad was a Liverpool fan and decided I was a Liverpool fan, and I was indoctrinated with Anfield and all the greats as early as I can remember, or even before I can remember really. And I'm a father now, and my little boy's just coming up to 18 months, and I've obviously got very similar plans for him, all the baby
Little
kits and
Ted,
everything.
right?
Yeah, it's Ted. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's just gone to bed. He'll be pleased to know it's 7 o'clock here, so he won't be joining us on this. He's got the same mouth as I have, and he's just as much of a show off. So yeah, I'm not ready to be upstaged by my boy too soon. So
Soon, yeah.
yeah, he's gone up. But so yeah, it was just for me. As I say, I don't remember it being something that was necessarily a choice, or it was we support Liverpool and that's what we do. And it's funny, my first actual memory of a Liverpool game was a defeat, and it was the 1988 Cup final, so it would have been six, and they played Wimbledon. For those who don't know or can't remember, and Liverpool were heavy favourites for that game. And Wimbledon had a pretty good team. I think they finished seventh. So it wasn't quite the kind of, giant killing and David and Goliath it's portrayed as, but it was still that Liverpool 88 side. Some people still say it was Liverpool's best ever team, and there's some competition for that. And
Yep.
so for Wimbledon to do them in a final was quite something. So in a way, it was quite a nice lesson for the young kid that you can't always count your chickens, and football can throw up some surprises, but I don't think I was quite ready to learn it at such a young
Yeah.
age. But yeah, just a couple of years later than that, I was starting to go, and yeah, that's when I guess it really begins.
All right. So when you were young, did you play? Were you good? Did you have any ambitions to put on the red shirt one day or? or did you
I
just more like
think,
realize that I'm a fan?
no, I mean, I think every kid dreams that they might be able to play for Liverpool. I think, um, so obviously our schooling system's a little bit different, and in my primary school, you go to till you're about 11, and I got in the school team, and I was one of the better players in the school team, and so you think, oh, maybe you kind of got a chance. And then when I went to senior school or comprehensive school, which is 11 to 18, and it's much bigger. I think there was about 300 kids in each year group, so a lot of the primary schools kind of go in and then try out for the school team, and you realize that these kids from these other schools who are a little bit better and quicker and stronger or whatever. And so I used to play in the B team then, so the second 11, if you like, which was still not bad going, but I think you realize then that there's another level, and these boys are kind of more likely. So, but I loved it. I loved playing. I still like playing. I'm more of a worker than I am a skillful player. I don't know who you. I'm more. I guess more James Milner than Mo Salah. But that's fine. Every team needs some James Milners, as we've seen over the last week.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of us have been impressed with Milner, especially the Spurs performance. So, and there's something to be said for his longevity in the league. So, so we'll move on from your younger days more to the younger days of the rap. So, how did you get involved in that? How did that start? Tell us about it.
Okay, it's a little bit of a long story if you don't mind, but
No, go. That's why we're here.
I'll try not bore people too much, hopefully. So the Anfield Rap started in 2011, and it started as a weekly podcast, which was recorded on a Monday morning. That was to talk about the weekend's game effectively, and so they wanted it to be fan media, but they also wanted it to be professionally recorded, and wanted it to sound good effectively, because at that time there was some football podcasts, not a huge amount in 2011, but there were some, but they were either kind of journalists doing them or recorded quite well, or there were some fans ones, but they were mainly recorded over Skype or whatever, and not with posh headsets like me and you've got today, mate.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of shouting into your dodgy microphone on your Dell laptop. So they weren't the best really. So the idea was to do fan media, but do it to a sort of high recording standard at least. And so they hired Parr Street Studios in Liverpool, which is quite a famous recording studio, and they used to do it at, I think it was either 10 o'clock, I think it was 10 a.m. on a Monday morning, because like no band in the world wants to record then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like it was always available, and so like the sound engineer used to come in like get out of bed a bit early and open up for an hour, and then let us have that time. And so a lot of the guys who started it are still involved. Neil Atkinson hosted the very first Anfield Rap, and obviously is still our main host. So he's been a constant. Andy Heaton it was his idea. It was and he got a lot of other people together and pulled a lot of people together to make it happen, but it was ultimately something out of Andy's brain, and obviously Andy's still full time and still heavily involved. Gareth Roberts was on the first one and was involved right from the off. And you helped fund it from the start, and was also the website editor, and the website's always been a big thing for us. And we're obviously more known for podcasts and now video, but the website was a big thing when Tour launched. So he was website editor because he'd been a journalist, so he had kind of journalism experience and stuff like that. And Gareth, people will know more now for he's a video host and an excellent one, and does more of that. But he was traditionally a writer, and so he came in it from that regard. So, and even like I think the first one, even Rob Gutman was on there, and so a lot of the kind of OGs, if you like, are kind of still involved and still going. And I knew Neil a little bit, and I knew Andy a little bit just from going the game, really. And both Neil and Andy had helped set up Spirits of Shankly, which is the supporters union that was obviously instrumental in the removal of Hicks and Gillette. And so Neil was the first chair of Spirits of Shankly and was on stage at the very first meeting, and Andy was, as always, in the background pulling strings, which is more his style. And so I kind of knew them a little bit from them, but also just for sort of away trips and stuff. And me and Neil had started going together. So I just listened to the first one and thought it was great, and just like badgered them to let me on, basically. But 10 a.m. wasn't a perfect time for me because I had like a real job and all that, and so I had to like invent meetings and stuff, and like, you know, networking events and things that were very important for me to go to, rather than just saying, can I go and do this football podcast at 10 o'clock, because it's such like a, you know, it's like it's so close to the start of the day / week, isn't it? So I didn't do loads, but then but was sort of involved and things like that, and started doing bits of writing, and at the start as well, there was a lot more emphasis on the website, especially on music and culture and fashion and stuff like that. And well, I was and am and always have been very involved in the Liverpool music scene, and so I offered to do some music writing. And so a lot of the early music writing was me doing, like, you know, gigs of the week or interviews or things like that. And so I used to do a lot more of that. And then Radio City Talk, which is gone now, unfortunately, but was a radio station in Liverpool, offered us a slot 5 o'clock on a Friday, and that was perfect for me. And Neil as well. Me and Neil used to work in buildings right next to each other, and so we used to meet up at 4:45, knock off a bit early, and then run over, and would be on live radio at 5 o'clock. And it was the most exciting thing. And we used to love it and still talk about it as a time that was great fun. But also we really found our sort of craft then, really, because I think radio is a good discipline and teaches you a lot. And so, and also I think it's where we found the style of Anfield rap, which is, you know, humor, but, you know, serious, but passionate, but, you know, I guess what the things that everyone associates with the Anfield rap now kind of found its way on that radio show, really. Because you had an hour, and that was with adverts and music. So really you have 40 minutes, and you had to say what you had to say or get out of the way. And that's a good skill to learn. And so I guess that's the story of a little bit of the rap and a little bit of how I got involved. Really, it was just thinking it was great, like a lot of other people do, and but being in a slightly better position than other people to force myself on it.
Yeah. No, you mentioned that you used to have a lot more of the music stuff. I can remember listening to The Rider back in the day. So like, how do you think that, like, how is the site and like the content kind of evolved from the more origin stuff, you know, waking up at 10 a.m. on a Monday, or getting like there at 10 a.m. on a Monday, to now being kind of where you are today, like traveling around the world, doing live shows and stuff?
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and I don't think anyone could have predicted it or anticipated it or planned for it, certainly. It grew pretty quickly, but obviously, you know, growing a free podcast doesn't necessarily give you a business. And so there was a couple of, you know, ideas of, well, how is this something that we can try and monetize and try and, you know, just to sort of make our employment, really. There wasn't any grand plan to become millionaires, and still isn't. But, you know, the plan was, well, how can we turn this like into at least a job? And so there was a couple of things that we tried. We tried an online magazine that didn't quite work, but looked really cool. But there wasn't like the massive interest in it in terms of the product. And so we thought, well, what do people like? Or they like podcasts, so we'll just give them more. So we launched a subscription service, which was then £5 a month, just for audio. It's now £7, and we just said, well, if people like podcasts, we'll give you more podcasts, but you're gonna have to pay for them, because we were getting to the point really where we just couldn't do any more for free, really, because we were doing obviously the free show on a Monday, the radio show, the website, you know, all the social media stuff obviously takes a lot, and so we launched that in 2015, and people came with us right away, and that was really nice, because then we could say, okay, well, we can, you know, give up the day jobs and focus on this fully. And it just allows us to be just a little bit more focused, a bit more professional, a bit more geared to giving people what they want, and also just a bit more ambitious in terms of what we do. And hopefully people have seen that journey, who've been with us for a long time, have seen that, you know, we do try and push kind of the boundaries or the expectations of what fan media is. And so, you know, in terms of that might be sort of longer form work or audio documentaries or obviously the video product now and stuff, that's a lot of time, a lot of effort and expensive to produce. And so we're always, you know, but the fact that so many people did come with us from day one and have stuck with us, and obviously we've grown since then as well, just allows us to do much more fun stuff, cool stuff, but also kind of ambitious stuff, really, and also employ people, and that's really nice. Like, there's a lot of young people in Liverpool who work in football now who wouldn't without subscribers, so that's pretty cool too.
I mean, I've been subscribed, I think, since late 2015.
Yeah.
So I can remember like a lot of the stuff when video was kind of introduced, and
looked awful.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. It was kind of just like a video of you guys recording a podcast, but it still was something. But like, when did you guys realize that like you had this passionate following? Was there like a defining moment, or did it just kind of like, did you just kind of like slowly like realize that?
No, there was a defining moment. It's funny, I was thinking about this before, sort of, you know, in anticipation of this evening, and a really big moment for us was 2013, and it was February 2013. I checked before, I googled it, and we did a live show in a place called Bray, which is about 10 miles out of Dublin, and we said we were going to go to Dublin, and then we announced this, and everyone in Dublin was like, that's not fucking Dublin. It's like 10 miles out. You know what people are like? They're so like passionate about where they're from, and you can't get anything wrong. So we were like, oh shit, we've announced our first live show, and everyone's angry with us already because we've said the wrong place. But it was in Bray, which is I think about 10 miles out of Dublin. But we did it was a 500 capacity venue. It was like a leisure centre. It was part of a hotel, and 500 cap. And as I say, I've always been involved in music, and I'm like, you know, if I put a gig on or put gigs on or whatever, like if you get 50 people turn up, you're doing well. Sometimes, you know, sometimes for certain things, you know what I mean? And so I was like saying to them, like, you know what I mean? Like, I know people download it and stuff, but like, you know, people coming out on a Saturday night, you know, in February when it's freezing, like, you know, we could fall on our asses here. Do you know what I mean? And it's sold out. Like, we could have, I don't know how many we could have sold, but it's sold out 500 in not even Dublin, and a train from Dublin. And, you know, all these people kind of came out, and that was a real moment of like, oh shit, we're onto something big here, and it means a lot to people. And people came, and, you know, they just wanted to say hello and shake your hand and say how much you're enjoying it. And it's funny with live shows, like, because like, it's not, people don't treat us like with rock stars or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it's not like, but it's more like, I think because people listen to you so much, like even then when it was 2 weeks, like it's like a friendship thing. So it's like, oh, you know, and then they have to say, oh, I have to remind myself that we don't actually know each other because I feel like we do. And that's like a nice thing that shows like your content's very familiar, and you're making people feel like they're in the room with you. And so, but that night, you know, everyone wants to say hello, everyone wants to buy you a beer, and I took up as many of those offers as I could, because it's expensive in Dublin. And so yeah, it was just really fun to just meet the people who are listening, because you get download numbers, but you might say, oh, what 30,000 people have downloaded the podcast, but it's just a number, really. It's hard to like quantify and like understand it properly, what that actually is, which is someone in their house going, I'll listen to this podcast, pressing download, going out walking the dog or whatever it is. We do well with dog walkers, and then going out and listening to it and laughing and you know, agreeing or disagreeing or whatever. I think that very first live show kind of really reinforced that, okay, well, these are actually people who are, you know, in another country, who are listening, who are enjoying, and this podcast means a lot too as well, to the extent where, because it's funny with the live shows, like people enjoy them and we put a lot of effort into our live shows, but if you haven't been to one before, I don't think necessarily people know what to expect. So they mainly come and pay the money and travel just to tell you they like the podcast, and that's it. And then they end up having a really good time, because obviously we go all out.
Oh yeah, definitely. Um, like you mentioned, like your experience with like gigs and like sometimes 50 people. Like, how important is life in Liverpool and like the music scene in Liverpool like important to like the development of how the Anfield rap kind of became this thing?
Yeah, it's funny really because I think, I mean, Liverpool is such a musical city, and as I say, I've always sort of been involved one way or the other in every. I've had a little go at everything at sort of one point, really, and not quite retired as a musician yet.
Yeah.
I was back on stage in December actually, because we managed to do a few social distance gigs before they shut it all down again. So yeah, still not,
Yep.
still putting the tap shoes on and getting on
Yep.
there. But it's Liverpool, and people will know who've been here. Like, it just feels like music and football are just in every part of it, and are just, almost part of the river that runs through, and it's part of everyone's lives. And it sometimes feels like in other cities, like you'll get people who are, oh, these are like sporty people and these are like music people or whatever, and it's like a sort of a little bit separate. Whereas like Liverpool, like it's you just, why would you have to choose when
Yeah.
they're the best two things in life? Do you know what I mean? And so you see that now with, with someone like Jamie Webster, who's come through,
Yeah.
who's connected it so brilliantly. Like, if he does a gig in Liverpool on a Saturday night, it's like party time, because you'll go to the match, hopefully see a Liverpool win, have a few beers, and then all bounce down and watch him. And like, what could be possibly be better? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you're with all your friends, you're doing all that, and so I think most musicians who come through the city, I don't think the Beatles was particularly into football actually, but sort of since then, I mean, obviously, you think about bands like The Farm and Peter Hooton, who's a huge Liverpool fan, and Cop season ticket holder, and has been involved in football songs and stuff like that, and all the way through, and around sort of. There was always big gigs in terms of fundraisers for Hillsborough, and stuff for the Dockers and stuff like that. And so it's always kind of been linked, really, and it's always been, I wouldn't say uniquely Liverpool thing, but it is quite a Liverpool thing, more so than think other cities, really, that they're the passions, and they're the things that are worth living for, and they're the things that we want to do as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. We're gonna do a little transition here, more from Liverpool and like the current team. I'd say recently we've seen a lot of like a pretty good combination of frustration and support behind this current team, with a bit of misery and a bit of swearing. We all love that. So like, how are you feeling after this run, but then kind of with the Spurs result kind of bringing us back into a more of a positive space?
Yeah, I think we all needed Spurs, didn't we? We all needed that Tottenham performance. We all needed a win, but also the way they played, the reminder of just how good this Liverpool team is. So everyone's feeling good about it now. I was always fairly kind of not calm, but kind of philosophical, just because they've been so good for so long that there was always gonna be a dip. And I've seen a lot of comparisons with Dortmund under Klopp, and the season where it started to go wrong, and I don't really see that personally. I think it's more like Man City last season, where they'd done 3 years, because they were a sort of a year ahead of us, City, weren't they, in the cycle? So they'd done 3 years of just relentless, just win, just, and the effort you put in, and the slog, and what it takes out of you mentally as well. You saw City just dip, and when you watch Man City last season, there was never anything particularly wrong with them. It just felt like the intensity had dropped a little bit, and things weren't quite bouncing for them, and they were. It wasn't like they weren't trying or they weren't doing good things. It just didn't quite look as sharp or as good, effectively. And I felt like that watching Liverpool this year. And so I was kind of, a week or so ago thinking, well, even if this season doesn't end how we want it to, and even if there's not a league title or a big trophy or whatever, I was always confident they'd bounce back and be fine next year, and they didn't need this big kind of rip it up and start again. But hopefully now, after Tottenham, we'll see tomorrow, how they play. But hopefully they've turned the corner now, and hopefully we can still do something this year. And we'd all love a centre half when we over the next couple of
Yeah.
days, and see who they can get into to have a good go at the Champions League as well, because we forget about that, don't we, a little bit, because it's been a while since the group stages and things. But no one will want Liverpool in that tournament. No one ever does. And if we can get a bit of form together, and who knows what we can do in that. So still plenty to fight for this season, in my opinion. And yeah, hopefully Spurs is just the start, and we'll all be able to laugh about that 3 weeks in December when we were crap, or January, whatever it was. Who knows what the
Yeah.
date is?
Yeah. Well, I agree with you because like I think because of how close the games were together, it was just a bunch of like punches in the gut really
Yeah.
quick after each other. If we had those results spread out over a season, probably wouldn't have felt like that. You mentioned the center back. Have you given up on the hope for a new center back? Do you think there's a chance? Klopp has made some comments recently, so
I think I think they'll get one in. I think they'll get one in. I don't think it'll be anyone that you're going to be getting on the back of your shirt, mate. I think looking
no.
at the back on there, I think Jordan Henderson's safe, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think they'll just look to get a body in, and it's going to be maybe slightly better than Steven Colker, but
Yeah.
very much below Virgil van Dijk. But
Yeah.
that's fine. An experienced guy who can come in and you know just means you're a bit less reliant on the younger guys, and a bit just an extra body as much as anything, because we keep thinking the injuries won't get any worse, but then they do. And so it's as much about you know thinking about what happens if there's one or two more knocks, as much as anything else. So I think they'll do something. I'm led to believe there's they're trying their best, and they're keeping everything cleared as much as they can in terms of medicals and stuff. So we shall see.
I do actually. I just thought of this question. There was yesterday. I woke up to the news of Liverpool being linked to American Aaron Long from Red Bull New York. Major League Soccer kind of looks like they're going to head out for a lockout, so there might not be any. So I mean, we've seen a couple Americans head to the championship already. So how do you feel thinking that there might be an MLS player coming to Liverpool? Because as an American, I try to follow MLS, but it's not as much. But how do you view like some defender from America coming over, maybe just
I
for like
think
6 months?
I think it'd be very difficult, to be honest with you. I think, look, if we were signing, a young guy, who'd ripped it up in the MLS, and he was coming over on a 5-year contract or whatever, I wouldn't be, I'd give him a chance. I wouldn't be snobby about it and go, oh, he can't be any good. He's playing in that league or whatever. I think, I'd like to think most Liverpool fans would be open-minded about that. But this is someone for 5 months, not 5 years, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I think in terms of getting up to the speed, what we're kind of after, I think if it is a short term thing, I think ideally you want someone who's played in the Premier League, who's played, at the intensity, at the speed, and can just adapt a lot quicker, because we've seen it. Even class guys like Fabinho took a while
Yeah.
to settle at Liverpool, and I think Klopp would always like to give a new player time and space to settle, and whoever this guy is isn't going to have that. And so I think, as much as possible, they need to be someone who, as I say, who just sort of hit the ground running. And even if that's not to the highest standard in the world, at
Yeah.
least it's kind of there. That's why I'm not like, as down on the Mustafi links as a lot of people are, because I think he'll just be
Yeah.
able to come in and just play at A level. And I'm not going to
Yeah.
pretend that level's world class, but it is, someone who's got him 20 caps for Germany and got him a move to Arsenal, and
A World
and
Cup.
exactly, yeah. So I think that I'd feel a lot more comfortable with that than someone coming from any other league, really.
All right. Looking at the squad, I mean, the season's been difficult. No one can deny that. It's basically no preseason, no real breaks, just kind of game after game after game. Has anyone been like a real standout this season for you? And conversely, has anyone really been kind of disappointing this season?
I think you've got to praise Fabinho. I think, for how he's played, especially most of the time at centre half. I think he's been excellent. And I think, he's arguably been our player of the year so far this season, in terms of, as I say, how he's played in a largely unfamiliar position. But I think you've got to give a shout out to Mo Salah as well, because we judge him by such high standards. He's the Premier League top scorer. He's got 2 in the FA Cup as well. Obviously, we're out of that now, and against Manchester United. And I just feel for him sometimes, because I feel with Mo, it's like if it's not a hat trick every game, everyone's like, oh, he's what's up with Mo? Do you know what I mean? He sets his standards so high in that first year that we'll almost kind of never be able to live up to them really. But he's still such a great player for us, and especially now it feels like with fouls, anything goes. You can do whatever you
Yep.
want to Mo Salah, can't you? And the referee won't give it. And so he's always fighting against that every game, and people grabbing him by the neck and kind of all sorts. And I think we'll really miss him when he does eventually go. And I don't know when that'll be. And I'm not saying it'll be soon, but obviously they all go eventually, don't they?
Yeah.
And so I think will be one with Salah that I think for some people, like I think they'll only truly appreciate his greatness once he's left, because he's still such an absolutely phenomenal footballer.
Yeah, I think it might have been Robbo had tweeted out some of the all-time like goal scoring charts, and he's like 14th or something.
Yeah,
And it's like you
yeah.
don't appreciate that. It's like how like his like goals per game is absolutely crazy. And um, where would you think this team would be without Klopp? Like if we had one of these other like fancy managers, maybe that didn't have the experience of Klopp, maybe like a Poch or like Chelsea's new manager Tuchel. Like, where do you think we would be without like the crazy German that we've grown to love?
It's it's almost scary to think about it, isn't it? In a way, I think Klopp is the single biggest factor to where we are now, and I think there's a lot of other people who've obviously worked very hard to sort of get Liverpool to where they are now, and to get Liverpool to the point that we were able to call them champions of everything. But yeah, again, when he walked in, the club was a little bit down, wasn't it? A little bit kind of flat, and a little bit kind of starting to accept its place, and that's almost the most dangerous thing a football club can happen to a football club. Really, is that we're like, and I was doing it myself, thinking, oh, we're a team who fights for Champions League place. Can maybe every now and again have a mad season like 13-14 where we go close or have a good chance, and maybe have a mad cup run like 2005 Istanbul where we win something. And so I was always thinking, there would be trophies, but not the idea of that Liverpool could genuinely call themselves the best team in the world. I think I'd sort of, you know, not given up on it, but it felt sort of unlikely. Just with the money in the game, and when countries start buying football teams, then it just sends it all to another kind of stratosphere, doesn't it? But Jurgen's he's brought everyone together. He's turned doubters into believers, like he said,
Yeah.
and he just makes everyone better, and that's all of us. That's
Yeah.
footballers and fans.
Yeah.
Like he's made me a better supporter of this football team. He probably made me a better host at the Anfield Wrap. Do you know what I mean? And he just makes us all feel like what we do matters, and I think like that's huge as well, because I think it's if everyone's pulling in the right direction, then you can achieve anything you want, and that's quite a Scouse thing to sort of think as well in terms of our identity. But and he sort of tapped into that really well, and I think recognised that sort of before he took the job really, and it's happened. And so I think the next guy will have an easier job in a way, because he's won that battle. So it's maybe a bit of a Shankly Paisley thing. Whereas who knows, the next guy might come in and win even more, like Paisley did. But I mean, Paisley, I'm sure would have said himself that he couldn't have done what Shankly did, which was to grab this team who were kind of struggling, and I mean they were second division when Shankly took over. And obviously, we weren't quite that, but still kind of, you know. Looked like the best days were behind them, and turn them into this team who believes they can do anything. And so I don't think now it's dependent on Klopp. And I think if Klopp obviously one day he will decide that that's enough. And I think there's other managers who can come in and keep it going, and maybe even improve us. But I don't think there was anyone else at that point who could have done what Klopp did to this Liverpool team. And I'll be forever grateful for that, as I told him in Boston, funnily enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so you like he laid that foundation that you said like other managers could build upon. Do you think that recently we've heard between Klopp, people like James Pearce, Melissa Reddy have actually like specifically been asking about a center back and the relationship with FSG. Do you think that that relationship is damaged, or do you think we're kind of more just like getting more worried because we're fans and that's what we do? We get worried.
I don't think it is damaged. No, I think Jürgen is. He's always been big picture, and so I think he's always been able to look at things as, well, look, I want this to happen, but that doesn't necessarily mean it can. And so, Jürgen is very focused on the pandemic. He talks about it a lot, doesn't he? And he's cross with our government and how we've handled it, and rightly so. And I think Jäger would like people to think, it's more serious than they do, rather than sort of less. And so he's aware of the wider world. He's aware of things that are outside his sphere. He's not blinkered in any way, Jürgen Klopp, in anything. And so I think I wouldn't personally, see him, what he's saying as a kind of with any anger. I think it's a bit more, bit of frustration and kind of, why does it have to be like this? And can we please just try and get someone in, rather than, I think he understands the money situation. I think he understands that it's hard, and I think he gets, as I say, the situation that we're in, and that everyone's in. And so I don't personally think, there's we'll be looking back at this as like, oh, that's when it started to sort of fall apart in terms of the relationships. I think he knows that he's in a good place in terms of, the support he gets, and the lack of interference effectively, because that's not the case everywhere. And we'll see other managers losing their jobs very quickly, and people not sort of not giving him time, and he knows that he was, quite rightly, obviously. But yeah, I'm not concerned personally, but I guess we'll all have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think he had trust put into him by FSG, and he's kind of trying to repay that trust back. So I certainly do agree. With your match day experience, you're used to like going to the match, cheering the boys on in person, where we're more accustomed to going to a bar and sitting and watching on a screen. How have you adjusted your match day experience during this COVID times?
Yeah, it's hard because I've had a season ticket since I was 10, go to a lot of away games as well, and so it's been a big change for me. Um, and obviously a lot of that time as well, that bars have been shut, so we haven't had sort of that option. And so you do miss people. You miss going to Anfield, but also you miss the people you used to sort of go to Anfield with, and you're all in WhatsApp groups and things, and do a little bit as like this, but it never sort of quite feels the same as that, really. So it's been difficult. We've tried our best, so we do hot mic commentary for games, and that's been quite nice, because obviously, a bit like this, people joining in on the chat, and it feels like there's a group of you watching together. We used to do them in person in our office space, and sort of socially distance, um and do that, and that was quite nice. So it'd be like 5 or 6 of you get together, all kind of spaced out, and that felt really good, but it doesn't really feel appropriate at the moment. Numbers are high in the UK, and high in Liverpool, and so we have to sort of be mindful of of the situation that we're in, and other people's kind of situations, really. And so we're back at home in our headsets like I have now, and doing them sort of remotely. But it's nice. I get to chat with Neil, and we do it, and you see people sort of on the chat. So I think we're all just making our best of it, really. I know, obviously, for a lot of people, they've only ever watched games at home, and things, and so it's sort of not sort of two sort of different, really. But it is a big jump for me, and as I say, as much around the before and after, and stuff like that, as much as not kind of being in the ground to support them. I think it's funny because I didn't mind the trophy lift too much, and so I thought that'd be really tough. But obviously we didn't win it in front of Liverpool fans anyway, and so we didn't kind of miss that. was a Chelsea City game, wasn't it? And that was a brilliant
Yeah.
night in Liverpool. Liverpool just broke into this spontaneous party, and the streets were filled, and everyone was outside of fireworks going off everywhere. It was really magical, actually. And then the night they did the trophy lift, I thought they did a really good job in it. I don't know what other people think, but I didn't really feel like I was missing out too much because they did such a good job. And they did it in the cop, of course, didn't they? And they'll never get to
Yeah.
do that again. So they made it unique in a way. And so I didn't really miss that. It was more kind of the starting this season and going, I'd love to, to be there to celebrate them. I did actually get to one game. I was at the Spurs game, so I saw Bobby Firmino's last minute winner, and so obviously there was 2,000 tickets for 3
Yeah.
Liverpool home games in December, and I was drawn out the hat for the second one, so that was lovely and great. But it feels like so long ago now. It's only just over a month, but feels like it's a life ago.
Yeah, it must have been special. So we're gonna pop a little back in time for a little story time. Talk about when you were for the Champions League final in Madrid.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that like for you? For the Anfield Rap as a whole, like, what was that experience like?
I it's a funny one with Madrid because I probably had like one of the greatest slash maddest days of any human being ever, because it's just like even thinking about it now, you're like, did that really happen? Pinch yourself, kind of imagine telling 18-year-old you that would be kind of what you did. And so I mean, start at the very beginning, we were involved in the fan park, and so we were on stage, and so the Anfield Rap did an hour quite early, but that's fine with us. It means more time for drinking afterwards. And so we were kind of, I think, first on at the fan park, but there was still like 30,000 people there, even at 11 o'clock in the morning or wherever it was. And so we did like an hour on stage. And how we work it for those is that I play some tunes on the decks, and it's the kind of upbeat stuff, and then Neil kind of talks through the journey there and just kind of gets everyone going, really. And it was good fun, and great. And then we sort of hung around there all day and just watched it all fill up to, like, by the end there's like 60,000-70,000 people watching JB Webster, and we had the best seat in the house, we're at the side. I think at some point, on the day, end up rapping with John Barnes as well, doing the Anfield Rap
Yep.
on stage with Barnesy. John wants to do it, but it's like quite hard to do on your own. So he's like, any volunteers? So like, I'm always willing. I think there was meant to be a few of us, but it just ended up being me, which happens a lot. But yeah, so there's some really cool videos knocking around of that. Of like, you almost kind of forget that kind of a little bit, really, of, as I say, as I mentioned before, my first game's 88, but sorry, first game I remember was 88, first game I went to 1990. That's peak John Barnes era. And so the idea of all those years later, I'm rapping on stage with him and stuff is incredible. But I'd also, I've got to give a shout out to Liverpool, really, because they get us and other people like involved in these things, and they get other people kind of, they trust kind of fan organisations to in these party situations. So we've done Kiev as well. We've done like the fan zone there, and done the fan park on stage, and then the Astos in Madrid. And then a week or so before in Madrid, I got a text from someone at the club saying, well, what are you doing after the game? And I was like, well, I'm just going home. Do you know what I mean? And then I was like, why? And I was like, what could it be after the game? And there was only one thing I could think it would be, but like, I didn't want to like jinx it or say it out loud, because it was like, it can't be like the players' parties, you know what I mean? But so we said, well, but anyway, he was like, well, we'll meet up in a couple of days. So we met up, and we talked about something else. And then he was like, oh, basically, like, we need a DJ for the party afterwards. Like, are you up for it? He's like, we've got like Colin Murray, who's a DJ over here, and like a proper one, not like me. But he's like, it'll be a long night, and can you help out? And I was like, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Trying to ask how many of her mates could get in and stuff like that, and stuff, and it was zero at that point. But yeah, but that obviously put huge pressure on the game, because I'm like, I thought I wanted to win enough. And then because it's Champions League final, then suddenly, you're DJing at this party, which could be the best party in the world, or could be like a wake. So, had a brilliant day, did the fan park, did all the stuff, went to the game. Obviously, we win it. And with all the guys from the Anfield, right, we all end up watching together. Right behind the goal, when Divock scores, and then bounced off to this party, and I was DJing till 7 a.m. and all the players there enjoying it, and obviously a few of them know us now and stuff like that because we've interviewed them or from, over when we do the tours and we can get a bit closer and just because they watch stuff as well, like it's funny because they're like, oh yeah, we like your videos and stuff like that. It always seems to be the videos, like they're not really podcast people, you know what I mean? But like they watch the YouTube stuff and stuff, so they buzz off it. So yeah, so it just felt really like honoured to kind of be there early. And then what was funny was we went on the bus to Madrid because it's just easier with all the stuff. So we like got the bus there, and then like the bus back left with all the guys on it, and then I stayed and flew home with the club. So it was like, so I was home. I was home for the parade and all that, and got to take my little boy down, who was like only, very, very young then, and got to sort of, do that kind of experience really. Whereas, all the other guys were obviously on this bus kind of heading home. And so, yeah, I do kind of pinch myself when I think about that and I see the pictures of me. Like Daniel Sturridge got on the decks with me as well at one point and was like telling me all the songs that the boys enjoy, and I was playing all them, and that filled the dance floor with all the guys as well. So, yeah, it was just an amazing 24 hours, just incredible. As I say, to do the stuff with Neil in front of all those people, and to have the day, and to, you felt like you'd seen everyone you knew and all day, and it was so hot, like, but and then to do the party and to enjoy all that and to not make a fool of yourself was amazing. So yeah, Madrid's like, I got home and like, as I say, like went up to the parade and then I must have slept for like a day because I was just exhausted. But it was incredible, and I do feel lucky to have been given those opportunities and to be involved in that.
Yeah, I think every fan who in the world would have loved to have been in that situation. So
yeah.
So another kind of party night. Anfield Rap in Boston, the live training. I'm not sure if you remember, but during the live training, I asked for some water, and you went back to the clubhouse and you got that for me. And then, as payment, I then got you a beer when you were on stage and you ran out. Not sure if you remember that, but
I remember the water. I remember
Yeah.
the water, but I didn't realize that you'd pay me
Yeah.
back. Well, I'd forgotten you paid me back. So top man, thank you very much.
You picked me out and you said, "Hey, I got you water at Fenway. Can you go get me a beer?" And I said, "Absolutely." So I ran to the bar.
That does sound like me. That does sound like me. Do you know what Boston was like? We was like, it's a bit of a blur. We was just so drunk for like the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because it was funny because obviously the first step of the tour was, well, the game was at Notre Dame, but we were staying in Chicago. We did a live show in Chicago, and we were like traveling a lot between the two because there's the open training and stuff, and any media stuff's all at Notre Dame, but we were based in Chicago, and so I was the only one who was able to drive because you've got to be over 30 to get a license. So there's only me and Neil over 30, and Neil doesn't drive, and so I had this big SUV, this huge like, car that you only see in America because there was quite a lot. I think there was 5 of us, and so we needed like a big vehicle and all the stuff. And so like I was basically like driving for the first 3 days of like this trip. And so like when I got to Boston, I was like, I'm all set. And so
you just let loose.
Exactly. And so and we were only there like 2 days. In fact, I think it was less than 48 hours because the game was really tight. And so I think we landed in Boston and the House of Blues show was that night. And then we got there and we couldn't check into our it was an Airbnb. We couldn't check in. And so we went to a bar by Fenway that your supporters club were all having a beer at, and we were like, oh, we'll just turn up and see if anyone's there. We had a beer with a few of you guys, in the afternoon of that. And then yeah, just sort of stayed on it. Did the House of Blues show. I mean, one of the best live shows we've ever done. You know, that many people, 2,000. It's such an iconic venue as well. Like even we
Yeah.
know it over here. Do you know what I mean? The House of Blues, and so like, just a real honor to be involved. And it was nice as well because like on previous tours we've always like done separate things to Liverpool, and so we've always been, you know, going up against them a little bit. And, you know, people have had a choice. So can you go to the Liverpool one or our one? And I understood it was difficult for people, do you know what I mean? Whereas it was really cool that this one we were able to come together. And again, that shows that the Liverpool in terms of what they're doing and is great, and getting more fans involved and fan media, and obviously they fly Jamie over and all that now. And you know, it was boss for us to do something, you know, together with them really. And so to do that was incredible. And yeah, we had a brilliant night and a brilliant time in Boston. Then we had to get up at like 9 a.m. the next day to interview Jurgen, and so we did Jurgen in their hotel. I think it was a Four Seasons, I think. So we had to like get up with the hangovers, get a taxi over, try and like look as fresh as you can for the boss and all that. And then we interviewed Jürgen, and then obviously after that you just pumped, so you're like, where's a bar? And we were drinking again, and then we did something in the stadium on the concourse in the afternoon as well, like a bit of a live thing there that quite a lot of people came to. And then there was obviously the game and all that, and we do kind of mix our own stuff, and the players always just laughing because I'm so drunk by these points, you know what I mean? And so it's cool. So we had a blast in Boston. We didn't see as much as I'd like to. I need to go back. We were mainly around Fenway, but it's certainly so memorable, and some experiences I'll never forget.
Well, I can offer you an invitation from the supporters group. You're more than welcome to come by. We would love to have you at our home at the Landing. So I think we're going to transition to some questions from the people that are actually watching. So from Colleen McLaughlin and then also from Nick on the committee, do you have any superstitions? Colleen says she never wears anything blue on a match day. Like, do you have anything that you just have to do?
Yeah, the blue thing's funny, isn't it? Because I catch myself sometimes going to put like a blue jumper on or something, and then I'll be like, no, Liverpool are playing tonight. Gonna put it away. Apart from that, nothing really. No, I'm not too much a superstitious person, but yeah, wearing blues, I think a step too far for a lot of us, really. Especially if the opposition are in that colour, you'd feel like you're always winning on. I always like to wear red for the final as well, and so I always love the pictures of Istanbul or any final really, and it's just like a sea of red behind. And so I'll always make sure that, it was for this one. I had for Madrid, it was the 86. I had an 86 retro shirt on and stuff like that. But whatever it is, it'll always be red rather than sort of any away colours for the final, just because. But that's more because of just how cool it looks, as an image. I think the sea of red behind the goal.
All right. A couple of questions from Adam Zan, our social media member. How important are the Teletubbies in the history of the world?
This is a joke about my social
Yeah.
media. Yeah. My
Yeah.
my little boy, as I say, he's 17 months. He's watching a lot of Teletubbies at the moment, and so it's informing a lot of my content. So I ranked from first to fourth them as dancers, and it got a lot. People had a lot of fun with it on
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah. Question from Jason Loeb. Not sure if that pronounced that correctly or not, but are there any new bands from Liverpool that you would recommend that people from the States here that might not be too familiar with the current like Merseyside like music scene that you would recommend?
Sure. Obviously, I've got to give a shout out to the shipbuilders because I manage them, but they're great. They do really well. Really proud of them, and they're smashing at the moment. Hopefully, an album out next year. So do check out the shipbuilders. In terms of stuff we listen to a lot, Red Rum Club. My wife loves them as well. They're an amazing live band. If you ever get the opportunity to see them live, they're incredible, but just as good on record as well. They've got a trumpet player who's way better than me. But it's kind of very bit mariachi. I don't know. It feels like they're sound checking a Quentin Tarantino film, but it's really cool. They're really good sound, really good boys as well, really good lads. And so I would encourage everyone to check out Red Rum Club as well. But there's loads of great stuff, and there's always great stuff kind of coming through, and there's always people being creative. But I would start with those two, and then if you need any more, just give me a shout.
Oh. We have from an anonymous attendee. So the guys that have started the rap, we have like Neil, Andy Heaton, like Robbo, yourself. Did you guys know each other prior to like going to like Liverpool matches, or there's some friendships there that kind of, and then like maybe the matches like brought you together, but were there any like same schools or whatever? Also, he wants to let you know that United drew 0-0 against Arsenal.
Okay, that is good to know. I didn't know
Yeah.
that's a good information. By the way, Spencer's just dived on and said the Cheap Thrills is a great Liverpool fan, and he is right. So the Cheap Thrills, Big Reds as well. So there we are. So in terms of lasting friendships, like it's funny because the main sort of guys behind the Anfield rap, like none of us did really know each other. So Andy pulled together people from different areas we didn't necessarily know, but had done things. So it was sort of like hiring a crack team, if you like, and pulling all these guys together. So Andy um, just messaged Gareth Roberts out the blue. Gareth Roberts had a fanzine called Well Read and had done loads of stuff around Pixie Gillette and stuff like that. And so approached Gareth to get him involved based on the fanzine, but didn't actually know him. I think Ian Maloney, who was heavily involved at the start as well, who was a designer, had and still has a really good clothing line called Love Follow Conquer. And so I think Ian was looking to sell a few more t-shirts at the time. So we agreed to do the logo and the website and all that. And so I think it was more kind of like, well, who seems to be around doing interesting stuff and who could help get this project off the mark, really, in terms of at first. Since then, a few of us have got our friends involved. And so Kev Walsh, I've known for a long time. We started going to games together in 2001. So when we were 19, so not quite school, but a little bit after that. Then Neil went to school with Ben Johnson. So they've known each other for a long time, and Paul Cope, he's known for quite a while as well, and so they were the sort of old friends, really. And so I think very often on the podcast, especially now we're doing so many, it's well, who do you know who might be good, and then you give them
Yeah.
a go, and then if they're all right, then you give them another go, and so it's like that, really. But as I say, it's interesting how little the guys who did start it up kind of knew each other, really, but I think there was just a recognition of they were doing interesting or good things in the LFC world, and could they do something great together, and obviously they did.
Yeah, fantastic. Question from Michael Basham here. So we have a few players out on loan. Elliot Gruich that are like doing some bits. Are there any ones that you kind of are interested in or in seeing more, maybe in a red shirt?
I think we're all interested in Harvey Elliott, aren't we? He's just such an amazing talent, and people I know. There's a couple of guys I know who support Blackbeard who just raving about him and just saying how well he's doing. I think he's amazing talent, and I think this loan would be great for him in terms of playing men's football, if you like, because he is still so young and the
Yeah.
work he's doing. And I think everyone's so excited about Harvey. There's a couple of guys in the under 18s as well who are looking good as well, who are worth kind of having a look at. I don't want to sort of say any names because you always don't want to put pressure on them, really. But that under 18s team is really exciting. Got a lot of goals in as well, and some good Scouse boys. And so do check them out. They're well worth a look.
All right. Great. I think we'll probably end this off with one final question, kind of combined a couple. Um, so from Jonathan Martin and Linda Mittman. Linda also says hi. She met you in one of the bars in Boston. And do you think we're chasing City at the moment? We're still a top four race. I think that's easy. We can all agree we're in a top four race. But for title race, do you think that we're chasing City might be better for Liverpool as a mental perspective? And then also, how does having fans not being in the stadium affect this?
I think to answer the second question first, that the fans, the team have found it tough, and I think the way Liverpool has built itself over the last few years under Klopp has been about togetherness and all that stuff I talked about before. And so not having fans there, would have been okay for a while. But I think they'd start to sort of get them down a little bit in terms of the players. But that leads on to the second part, which is the chasing part. I think will sharpen the minds maybe a little bit. And this game against Manchester Manchester City's going to be absolutely huge, isn't it? And hopefully we'll have a couple of wins under our belts, by then and kind of going into that really. But I think how well they can do in that game almost defines what Liverpool are playing for this season, really. And so if they can beat Manchester City, then it's game on, bring it on, isn't it? And I think this is a team, I think with any team, you need kind of clear direction and clear goals, really. And so maybe, as you say, or as the questions say, chasing kind of suits us a little bit more at the moment. But I think, yeah, as I say, if we can get some good results over the next week, and then if we can beat City, then I think they'll be absolutely raring for it again, and they'll believe that they can do it again as well.
All right. I think everyone kind of would really hope that's the case. So, all right. I think we're gonna wrap it up here. It's been about an hour. We want to thank John for his time. Been an absolute blast. We've been doing these for a couple of weeks. They're free for all of our members, so anyone that isn't a member right now should join. Our next chat is going to be 2 weeks from now, February 13th, with Abu Nasir. He's been involved in all sorts of football since the age of 7. Football player, coach, sports business executive. He's currently among the candidates for FA chairman, and recently appointed to the FA National Game Board Committee, which is responsible for football in England. So again, thank you very much to John Gibbons. Please consider donating to Michael Liverpool. That would be great. Everyone, we need help during these times. And then also look for our page for the Greater Boston Food Bank. So thank you for everyone. We really appreciate having you here. Have a good afternoon. All right.
This is Alice. I'm removing folks that are still here, so give me a second. Yes. 4.
Is that everyone?
Almost.
Yeah.
There's 3 people left.
Get out of here.
Go away. 2 and... All right. Go on. I'm going to stop recording.
All right.